Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County City Hall. Today is Tuesday, May the 19th. The time is approximately 5 o'clock p.m. First of all, we'd like to welcome everyone here today, as well as those that are at home watching us on Facebook Live. This is the 2027 budget presentation meeting for Macon-Bibb County Commission. I, as mayor, will be making a budget presentation tonight. That's all we'll be doing, and it should not take very long. I will tell you that we have a very large book, a packet that we'll be passing out to each of our commissioners at the completion of my presentation. I generally make my presentation from out there, which I'll be doing in just a moment. But I wanted to call the meeting to order right now and go ahead and begin this process. Also, we'll have a resolution tonight that'll be available online and copies that will be made detailing the budget. We'll include the dates that we'll have the public hearing, which is June the 2nd. And then we'll later publish a date as well as in the legal organ of when we'll have the actual vote. So this time I'm going to step down to the lectern. I've turned that on, I believe. And I'll go down there and I'll present. So unfortunately, those media, you'll just have to catch the back part of my head. Or you can move, but just don't get in the way of those cameras there. Somebody may want to see the TV. I'll be able to look at this one here if you don't mind, so we're good. Well, it's good to face my commissioners head on. So we appreciate everyone being here and being in their place today. And certainly over the last couple of weeks, our budget team has been working really, really hard to help put together our budget for 2027. And as some people may believe that the mayor does it all and looks at all the numbers and meets with all the departments, but we have a team that does that work. And certainly it takes all their valuable input to make that happen. Personally, I'd like to go ahead and thank Ms. Rita Sims, where's she at there? There she is, for her involvement. She's been working really, really hard for the last couple of months, actually, each and every day, along with Dr. Moffitt and all the rest of the staff. Ms. Jones, thank you very much. We appreciate your work, your hard work. She's been going back and forth. I don't know how many number 2 pencils she has, but she's been making a lot of changes today. So I want to just talk about this proposed 2027 budget for just a moment. And when I was thinking about budgets, I always go back and look at just some famous quotes that really detail some things to me about what a budget is. And 2 of those came to mind today. The first one is by John C. Maxwell, who I like to read a lot about. And this is a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And a lot of times our citizens are always wondering, where did this money go? They take all this money and where does it go? So today you're going to kind of get a little outline about where we put our priorities and where we put our money at. And of course, this large book that I have detailed will show a lot more than my 15-minute presentation tonight. The second is another quote that says, if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And that was by none other than Benjamin Franklin. And what you'll see tonight is a result of a lot of planning, because our local government has a lot of challenges these days, and we'll talk about that as I go through the budget. But you have to have some foresight to kind of plan into the future to look at, what are some problems that we anticipate? How do we balance the budget in some challenging situations? And we've been doing that over the last couple of years, and you'll see tonight how we kind of connect those dots. How we went to Atlanta just several years ago after 4 unsuccessful attempts to pass an OLOST, and how we advocated at the Capitol to get that done, and how we also promoted that and got it passed through our local referendum we had here overwhelmingly to do a 1-penny sales tax to help alleviate some of the tax burdens. And you'll see some of those numbers that I'm going to show you today on how much we used to get in property taxes and how much we get now, and see that difference there. And it takes that type of planning to make things happen. You'll look at how we try to do recruit and retention of our public safety. And you'll see how those numbers go up each and every year, but you'll also see how our millage rate has decreased. Because we're doing much, much more with a lot less, and we have to do that. And again, I'll talk about that at the end when we get to challenges to let you know how lean this budget is. This is a very lean budget. It barely circumferences what we had last year, but we made a lot more improvements this year. So I'm going to go through that right now. We'll go ahead and turn to the next page there, please. So we'll see several things on this page here. Beginning, you'll see our general fund 2026, around $219,835,000 and some change. My proposed 2027 budget is not much in advance of that, $221,489,432. So what you'll see is a very small jump from one to the other, but you're going to see some large increases in certain departments that I have here. First of all, I'll tell you, when we meet with all those different departments, we have things that they may want and things that they may need. Just like when you balance your budget in your household, there are many things you may want, and there's some things you may not can afford, but you try to get what you need. And that's what this budget is doing here. Many of our good, hardworking departments, our employees, they ask for a lot of things. And if we gave them everything that we wanted to give them, our budget would be probably $20 to $30 million more, but your taxes will be some 30 to 40% more at the end of the day. So let's talk about the property tax revenue that I just alluded to just a moment ago. If you take a look at that screen, you'll see in 2022, which is just about 6 months or so after most of us arrived here, you'll see that we were getting about close to $81 million from the taxpayers in Macon-Bibb County from the property taxes. Just this last year in 2026, we only received $58 million from the taxpayers in Macon-Bibb County through property taxes. So if people tell you, again, like I said last year, if they tell you we just raised my value of my house and got more money, no, we did not. This is over $20-something million less than the amount that we received. So we're getting less money in from taxpayers, and part of that's because of some OLOS that we got. But the other part is because this commission has been very good over the last several years about keeping the millage rate in line and trying to make it more affordable for our citizens and for them to live off of the money that they make. So where do we spend our money at? I want you to look at salaries and benefits. Back in 2021, our salaries and benefits package for our employees was some $99 million, just under $100 million. And as we showed you in 2026, is about $123 million. And this year for 2027, we're showing just slightly below that, $1.2 million below that at $122 million. However, if you look at that time frame, you'll notice that we're about $22 million, almost $23 million that we've improved our salaries and benefits just since 2021-22. Keep in mind, we've done all that despite lowering the millage rate, and you can see the numbers there of our property tax revenue has decreased. So if you look at the 2021, you'll see a millage rate of 20.31 mills. If you go on, you'll track that, you'll see 19.9, 17.9, 10.7, 9.9, and again on last year, 9.575. Now, some people may say, well, they just simply took in the OLOS and they were able to create this tax decrease. Well, if you look at the OLOS, the value of 1 penny, and you subtract that out, that math doesn't math. We've gone above and beyond. As a matter of fact, if you remember the first time that we did the OLOS, we only required to do that millage rate roll back about 5. Nothing the first year, but we still did 2 that first year, if you remember correctly. We went from 20 to 19.9. Then we started cutting into that with the OLOS, and each year we'd roll back the millage rate till we got this 9.575, which was one of the goals that we had in the beginning to get to around 9.5. As you can see, we're starting to level off. And when I talked about earlier, you plan to fail. If you don't plan, you're going to fail. Well, we wanted to have a balanced approach, and I remember some discussion around the horseshoe last year about, are we providing enough services for our money? Do we need to consider raising the taxes or raising the millage rate on our citizens? And we had that discussion. And we talked about how Macon-Bibb County has a balanced approach. We do a balanced approach with the 1 penny sales tax, and we do a balanced approach with the property tax. As many of you know, that Macon-Bibb County has led the way, and the state themselves are doing a floss, and I'll talk about that toward the end of my presentation, where they're allowed other people to do a 1 penny sales tax, but not Macon-Bibb County. And they'll put some restraints on us, and we'll talk about that. But we want to have a balanced approach. And keep in mind, commissioners, and I've told each of you when I met with you individually in the last couple of weeks, that this is a balanced budget that I'm presenting, which means whatever we take in revenue is what I have in expenses. So if you decide that you want to change something out of the revenue department, then you have to show me where you want to cut in expenses. And that's what we call a balanced budget, and that's what we're going to do again. So let's move on to the next slide. So we talk about basically our priorities. It's very hard to get around public safety as being a priority. It's on the top of the minds of everybody in Atlanta, in D.C., and in Macon, Georgia. We continue to do poll after poll and ask people what their number one topics are. It's always going to be public safety, whether you're having a good year or a bad year. So I wanted to go through some of this again to kind of remind people where we've been in the last 6 years with our public safety. We know we have a lot of good men and women that are out there working in our community, trying to provide a safe environment for us to live and to raise our families and offer opportunities for our kids to continue to want to live here and work here and play here and worship here. And it comes at a cost. And we have to be very, very mindful that it comes with a cost. And we can never pay them what we think they need to make. We can never pay them exactly what they're entitled to make. Just like a teacher. A teacher is one of those folks that you can never put a price tag on it. Just like a mother in a home. When you look at all the duties a mother does, the average salary for a mother ought to be $125,000 per year based on everything she does at the household or whoever's at that household, the person that's at the household. So you can't really put a price on it, but we have to put a price on it, and that's what we're doing tonight, is letting you know where we come from 2021 and where we're at some 6 years later. So we'll start with the fire department, and I'll go through these numbers fairly quickly, but you can look in 2021, we had a budget around $27 million for the fire department, and look at last year, we had a budget of $34,116,000. This year, I'm proposing a budget just slightly above that amount, at a rate of $312,000 to increase to a budget of $34,429,000. Fire department has done really well. If you know, many of you were at the ribbon cutting that we had, or the rolling out, the pushing in ceremony that the chief likes to do. And for the first time, we were able to get 8 fire trucks out there at one time, and those apparatus that we have there. As you recall, going out to the airport here recently, we were able to go out there and have a nice piece of equipment out there that's really going to help it do well at the airport. So we continue to invest into our fire department, but you can look at the 6-year change at the end. $7.2 million is what this mayor and commission has done to improve our fire department over the last 6 years. That's an additional revenue that we did without actually raising the property taxes. The sheriff's department is the other big idea that we always look at. $48 million back in 2021, 2026, $58 million. And of course, this year my proposed on that one is $61,488,000. You can see a $3.3 million increase in the sheriff's budget from year over year. And you also see a 6-year change there of over $13.3 million. Again, without raising the millage rate, we've been able to increase the funding for our sheriff's department over $13 million, which include hiring new deputies. This does exclude a lot of the new cars and other capital outlay projects that we'll do through our SPLOST. This is just mainly personnel expenses and paying the insurance and things of that, benefits and that. EMA 416 back in 2021. You'll see a modest increase this year of $76,000 for 2027 proposed, but you'll see close to $400,000 we've increased the EMA over the last, I say 6 years, that's correct, last 6 years. Of course, we didn't have code enforcement when we first got here in 2021. As far as a separate office, so you really have no base to go on. But you'll see in 2026, we had about $2 million in code enforcement. We only went up $103,000 this year for code enforcement, despite all the work we've done making them public safety, and despite the fact that we're building on to our existing building here. The courts is a big one, and the courts includes a lot of things. The courts includes everything you would consider with a court, but it also includes the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, and all the courts that we have. That includes the magistrate court, the state courts, superior courts, and the municipal courts, as well as the juvenile courts. Some of those things, by the way, have what we call unfunded mandates that we hear all the time, meaning the state may give a raise to the top employee out there, and often they do. Even if they fund those, we have people that make money just a percentage below that. We have to increase their pay based on our costs unless the state freezes those. So you'll see there that we have a slight decrease in overall for our courts this year. We dropped that down to $26,171,000 for about $301 cost savings that year. But overall, in the last 6 years, $13.4 million that we've increased that public safety. The coroner there, we all know and love Mr. Leon Jones. He started out back in 2021 at $546,000. He's had some increases over the last couple of years, some of those by state and some of them by our own charges. And now in the last 6 years, he's only gone up the budget $224,000. So when you look at that, you look at this public safety itself, $94 million up to $125 million, so $31 million, I'm sorry, $25 million, $31 million, $0.7 million increase in public safety. So when people say we're not doing what we're supposed to do in funding our public safety, I can give you 31.7 million reasons why we've increased our public safety. Our job is to do policy and funding, isn't that right? Our job is not to manage the sheriff's department. We don't tell the sheriff what to do. We can't tell the sheriff what to do. And the last thing we try to do is just control people with their budget strings. But $31.7 million is a pretty significant increase over 6 years without raising the taxes. More importantly, you look at this particular slide that you have here, the proposed public safety budget this year. You'll notice that that's about 57% of our budget. That's public safety is 57% of our budget, and that's mostly employees and benefit. Does not include cost of a jail. Does not include equipment, technology, and those types of things. I will also tell you that members of this body and myself have went over and reviewed the ShotSpotter information. This budget includes ShotSpotter. ShotSpotter is an annual cost that we've increased some areas of ShotSpotter of about $525,000 per year. As you recall, several years ago, we received some ARPA funding, and we designated part of that funding to the ShotSpotter for about a 4 or 5 year contract. That contract has expired, and based on my conversations and review of ShotSpotter with the commissioners, I have put that back in the budget out of our own funds that we have here. So $525,000 of that is in the budget under one of our sponsored programs. We're going to move on to the next slide. Again, we're talking about our priorities. We moved up in the information technology. As you know, everybody talks about AI. Everybody's talking about working smarter instead of harder. Everybody talks about security. We start looking at cybersecurity. You can look what happens when you can basically tap into Amazon or have ransomware done to your government. We have to make sure that we stay up with those times. Technology is one of those things you cannot fall behind. Matter of fact, by the time it comes off that box there and gets shipped to your house, sometimes it's outdated already. So we must stay on top of that. You'll see that. You've seen that continue to rise since 2021 from about $5.2 million to over $3.8 million total for that time as far as the increase. This year I'm proposing a budget of $9,129,000 to meet those needs. Commissioners, each time you get here, and probably once a month, we usually have an item to vote on, and that item that you're voting on is part of these budgets. It's part of that update and that new equipment that we have, or the new program that we have, or the new software we have. Those type of things is what's protecting our government, protecting our citizens that we have here, and protecting us to make sure we can work more efficiently. Again, that's $3.8 million increase in the last 6 years, despite our millage rate dropping more than half. Recreation, we all talk about recreation. We all know and love recreation. You've seen a steady increase in recreation since 2021. We would like to have more participation in our recreation centers, but kids these days, I don't know if you noticed, they do a lot of time texting, get on the computers. Not a lot of people go outside and play, shoot basketball, get on the football field, baseball field like they used to. So we have a lot of recreation centers, and we've done a lot of money in SPOS this last couple of years to improve the looks and the safety and inclusivity of everything in our playgrounds there, as well as access to our departments. You'll see an increase there from $4.6 million to 2027, $8 million. That's a pretty huge jump in telling people where we put our money, where our priorities are, because we feel like that part of the way that we're working on this MVP, making violence prevention and getting our crime rate down amongst our youth and reaching out to them through the community foundation grants is to try to get them more active in things like this right here. That's why we have the camps going on there at a very little charge this summer at our recreation centers. You'll see that we have a slight increase only because we've got employees we have to cover for that, and we have some contracts that we do there of $265,000. But over the last 6 years, $3.3 million increase without a tax increase. Beautification is another one of those hot button topics we always talk about. You know, I can save $2 million today to tell those citizens at home that ride through our neighborhoods to quit throwing things out the window at every stop sign, to quit going to those curves there's no lighting at and throwing trash out there. We spend countless and countless hours each and every week, day, month, year, picking up trash at the grown folk. And that is something that I believe we could save money on if we could just have people be held accountable for that and have them search within themselves to not do that, to litter our community. And we've gone up from $2.4 million in 2021 to my projected budget this year is $4,284,000. That also involves cutting grass and doing things like that as well. But for the most part, the beautification is we have a lot of people out there, believe it or not, picking up trash. We can pick up trash this week and it looks great, and guess what happens next week? Y'all can tell me, I don't have to tell you. How many times have we cleaned underneath Spring Street Bridge? I can tell you it's been about 100 times since I've been here, and guess what? If you go out there tomorrow, it's going to be filled up again, and guess what? We're going to clean it up again. And our streets after street, Chambers Road is one of those ones that come to my mind. I ride all the time. If you go through there, people just don't care about it. Throw trash out there. It's not the government throwing trash out there. It's not your commissioner. It's not myself throwing trash out there. These are people that are citizens or traveling through who just simply don't care. As much as we try to teach them and get into the schools and tell them to give a hoot and don't pollute, people still throw trash out there. That's costing us valuable money. Think about how much more public safety or how many more parks we can have or how much more green space that we can make beautified if we had that extra couple $1 million. We do have a slight decrease in that thanks to the wonderful job of Ms. Cherise Stevens, Merriweather. She's brought on a bunch of minority contractors who have been doing a great job. We've been able to get out of our parks and things and some of our cemeteries. We've been able to get them done at a better price. Once you have competition, just like our roads, you get a better price. In bringing her in there, increasing our minority participation, and getting those prices down, have saved us some money to allow us to be able to decrease that amount by $391,000. However, you can still see a $1.8 million increase over the last 6 years. It shows that that's important to us. We've been steadily increasing this and trying to work smarter. You have to excuse my voice. I got a shot last night, a steroid and an antibiotic that I'm taking. And my voice comes and goes. A little personal information, but when you go to a concert of about 100,000 people and you mix up on that, sometimes you may get a little cold or a little symptom there, but I'm not contagious. So even though I won't shake your hand tonight, I'll greet you and nod to you, maybe give you an air fist bump, but just give you a little explanation on why my voice is giving out on me. Next page, please. We'll talk about some challenges, and I want to walk very gingerly on this, even though I'm not the kind of person that generally does that. I want to talk about some real challenges. This is the hardest budget in this environment that I've ever had to do. The hardest budget I ever did is when I came over to the school system back in 2011 and 12 after Romaine Dallemont was there, and we had to make some drastic cuts and things of that nature for a couple of years. But this is probably the second hardest I've had to do. It's very hard to work a budget when all the parameters in your budget comes from things that you cannot control from the outside. And when I say outside, I'm talking about Atlanta and Washington, D.C. Those are things we simply cannot control on a local level. And as much as we like to do our part, it makes it challenged. When I said earlier this is a lean budget, it's a lean budget. If you do the math, you see that we only went up from $219 million and some change to $221, less than $2 million. But I hope you notice that number we gave the sheriff $3.3 million more. In the other departments, we gave more money. So you can see that we've had to make some cuts. And some of those cuts came through other departments, including my own office. I asked every department to look it up to 10% cuts that we could do in their departments, not public safety, but outside of public safety. As you can imagine, not everybody wants to do that, but we have to make cuts and we have to tighten up our belt, just like you would do. We ask our people to do at home. We want them to live within their means, and we're trying to live within our means to make sure that we provide all the things that we need. But I want to tell you about some challenges that we have, not just unique to Macon-Bibb County, but since we're here talking about budget in our county, I'm going to talk about them at our level. First of all, the rising service costs. These are costs that include the pensions that we have, the health care that we provide to our citizens, to our employees. Our trash pickup and our waste management continues to go up each and every year because of the CPI. And I don't fault them because guess what? We signed the contracts because we know that the fuel costs have gone up. How many here realize that gas prices have gone up? Everybody better raise their hands, otherwise they're not paying for gas, right? We can't control those types of things, so it makes our garbage pickup more. It makes our police patrols more. It makes all of our travel more. So you got your health care, your waste management, your public safety, and your transportation. Those are rising costs that we continue to have challenges with, and I don't see any way that they're going back right now. Once you raise those prices, you may cut some of the fuel once we get through the situation in the war that we're in now, but costs are going to probably stay high, and we have to plan for that. If we don't plan for it, what are we going to do? We're going to fail. So we've been planning all along, not just year, but multiple years in our budget. Aging infrastructure. As many of you know, when you have aging infrastructure that you don't take care of, and money was in the previous plots for a lot of these things, you start having more maintenance problems. And you have to replace these things. And a lot of times people think you want these new shiny objects, but really they're more efficient to work with when you start looking at debt service each year. So our aging infrastructure with our maintenance cost problems, they go to worse over time. We always got to keep that in mind, and that's what we've been doing to work smarter. And that's what we're doing in technology. And our technology hire that we did this last year for a new technology IT director, going to save us a lot of money in the long run, and we appreciate that and the effort she's doing so far. Technology and cybersecurity leads right into that. Outdated systems. You know, we have outdated systems, we have paper-based processes, and are increasing our cybersecurity threats. You know, a couple of years ago, we had a cybersecurity incident here with some ransomware, and it almost would have crippled us if we hadn't been in a good shape, but we planned for it. Because if you don't plan, you do what? You fail. And that's what we try to do. So we're investing in those types of things so we don't have a week where our employees don't get paid because somebody, you know, froze our accounts. It costs money. Your average citizen sitting at home, my wife watching on TV right now in Lizella, she don't see that. All she sees is that tax bill we get and we open up each year. She don't see the fact that part of that money goes for your IT to make sure nobody goes in there and takes our deputies' pay if they can't get paid that week or their overtime that they have. They don't see whether or not we can keep that library door open. But we do. Workforce shortages. You know, we always talk about workforce shortages, and we do have some situations where we outsource some things. But recruiting and retaining qualified employees are always a challenge. It's always a challenge, especially when you're competing with the public sector. You know, a lot of people work in the public sector for various reasons. But guess what? They have turnover. Their turnover remains high too, and their experienced workers retire just like us. We lose some of the institutional knowledge. We lose some of the experience we got because people come and they end up retiring and they go on to do whatever they're going to do in their lives. So those things are a challenge to us. A couple more things include the budget strain and our limited revenue tools. This is where I try to walk a little gingerly, even though it's not my nature. You know, you don't have to look very far to see what's going on in Georgia, particularly our local governments are getting targeted. We're much more under pressure. Right now, I'm sure there's some Rick Jackson commercial playing right now in the background. It's talking about how we're going to freeze all these property taxes and how we're going to eliminate this and eliminate that. Well, guess what? When they can show me how they can do that, hell, I may vote for them. But that's impossible. You can't just cut all the taxes away. You can't freeze all the taxes without creating new revenue sources for us to provide the basic needs to our citizens. If those folks have been in the seats that you and I have been in, balancing budgets like we have to do to make our ends meet, then they would know. But most of them have not. And that's what's a challenge to us, because last year I was at the Capitol a lot as being part of the Georgia Municipal Association. And being up there in those budgets and being up there for every bill that came out up until the very last day on Sunday night, past 12 o'clock midnight, and hearing about these caps. You remember last year we talked about how much money we're going to lose if we did a 3% cap in Macon-Bibb County from our tax assessors and how much that would predict out over a lot of years. So we did what? We opted out. Why did Macon-Bibb County opt out? We opted out because Macon-Bibb County, as a consolidated government, is not allowed to do the FLOST, the F-L-O-S-T, that say Warner Robins has going on now. They get another tool that we're not allowed to do on that FLOST because they're not a consolidated government. We couldn't do that, but yet they want us to cap our revenue at 3% and eventually probably get rid of the homestead exemption tax. I tell you, I'm all about getting rid of the homestead exemption tax because I pay enough of them. And I think at some point in time, you know, there's always death and taxes or things. Death's going to be there. I think by the time I get a certain age, maybe I shouldn't have to pay as much taxes when I get there. But you got to find a place to do that fairly. And that's why I'm glad that each of you joined me in getting a bill passed in the state through our local delegation that will allow our senior citizens to be able to exempt some property taxes and school taxes if they vote for it this November. That's coming up on a referendum. But those types of things, these limiting things, this cap that we got, it's going to put some pressure on Macon-Bibb County. You know, because we've been planning in the last several years to have a balanced approach, it's not going to hurt us as much as it hurts some communities. Because guess what? When people start talking about the amphitheater, they talk about the pickleball courts, when they talk about the new arena that we may have coming up soon, they talk about the new convention center we got, and they're just looking at this building that we have there. They don't understand that when we took off, and I say we, back in 2020 when most of us came on, except Miss Wynn, I'm looking at my Mayor Pro Tem. She got here a little bit before the rest of us. They don't realize that the sales tax back then, based on what we were generating, was around $38 million a year. I'm happy to say in this budget here, it's about $44 million a year. So that's an increase of how much? Where's the math geniuses on here? There you go. That's an increase, right? We've increased that $6 million. Is that right? No, $6 million. $6 million, we've increased that by making those things. But 6 years, how much is that? $36 million. So we've made up for some of this other area that we've been losing money in for property taxes by increasing the sales tax, increasing that revenue to hotel motel tax that funds the Tubman Museum, the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame, the Museum of Arts and Sciences, the Douglas Theater, Toby Sofke, all those wonderful things that we like to participate in. We did that because we planned ahead of time, and we knew it was the right path to do. And that's why we continue to do that. But we also can see a drastic reduction, so we're going to make sure that we keep ourselves in line. And we only spend what we're required to do. Because otherwise, you're going to have a tax increase, and that's maybe a conversation you have to have. This year, as you saw on there, my plan is to keep the tax millage rate the same as it was last year, 9.5. We could see a bump up in what we're able to get, and we'll make that decision when we get there. But in the past, we've always rolled it back. But because of these challenges here, doesn't mean we're going to have to roll it back this year. Because of that cap, the state is going to force us to probably take that money. And that's something that we'll have to do. Of course, other counties have been doing it every single year. We have not. And they've been collecting that money each and every year. Macon-Bibb County has not. So we're going to have to look at those things. We're going to have to look at the price of trash. We've been locked in on $20 a month for trash pickup, for trash, debris, and recycling for the last, before I got here. Our prices are going up to such an extent that we're paying people pick up people's trash. And that's something we'll have to look at. We'll have to look long and hard at to see if you want to continue to absorb that and decrease the amount of money that you can spend in other areas that are important to our community. We didn't create these problems, but this is a budget strain that we're going to have to deal with, and that's why we get elected to sit in these seats. And finally, the economic uncertainty. That's one of the most famous phrases that we've had over the last couple of years besides affordability. And this economic uncertainty are fluctuations in the economy that can impact our local revenues, particularly our sales taxes, our interest rates, and our fuel cost. Each of these are very sensitive to economic conditions, and they can impact our planning. And we have to consider those. When we borrow money, we have to look at what the interest rates are. When we're buying fuel, we have to look at what the fuel costs are. And then, of course, when we are looking at our sales tax, we have to predict what our sales costs are going to be, our sales taxes are going to be. So the good news for Macon-Bibb County is we are not looking at a tax increase. The other good news is we've been planning for this for a while, and we're in good shape, much better shape than most people are in our area. And it takes all of us working together to make this happen. I want to make Macon the place that everybody wants to come live, to raise their families, to work, to get a good job. Just this week, we announced another expansion of a small business, 500 jobs. Doesn't seem like very much to some people. Let me tell you a little bit about this company that did this. They started out with about 100 jobs, less than 100 jobs. In just a few short years, less than 2 years, they've hired over 500 jobs. Guess who many of those men and women they hire are? Want to take a guess? I know you know, Mr. Howell. These are people who had a second chance. These are people who come through our reentry program in Macon-Bibb County. So you don't hear about that story, do you? You don't hear about that gentleman who gets out of jail that's been there and done his time and gets out, and instead of going back on the streets, he gets a good job paying good money, taking care of his family. You don't hear about that part. That's the story we have to tell. That's the people we're fighting for today. And that's what this budget says. When I did my State of the Community address just a couple of months ago, I didn't talk about these big projects. Yes, the arena's going to be great. It's going to kill everybody in Georgia. Yes, this new FBO is going to bring new airlines to Macon so we can travel to other destinations. Yes, we're going to protect our musical heritage. Yes, we're going to have a new convention center. But guess what? We're taking care of the people. We talked about the people we're taking care of. This budget speaks to the people, the salaries, the benefits, the focus that we have on them. That's what this is about. You ask somebody where their priorities are, what do they tell you? It's where you spend your money, right? If you get an Amazon box in your house every day, guess what? I could probably look at your next door neighbor and tell you what your priorities are. If you see me traveling to go down to a concert in Florida with 100,000 crazy people, you probably see what my priority was that weekend, right? Where your priorities are is where you're going to have your money at. This budget says we value our public safety, we value our employees, we value their benefits, and we're not going to let those folks in D.C. and those folks at the Capitol and the state of Georgia dictate what we provide to our citizens. But we're going to be smart about it, and we're going to do a balanced approach with our property taxes and our sales taxes to make sure we meet and exceed the needs of our community. So I'm about out of time, and I think all my slides are just about gone. So today is Tuesday, May the 19th, and the time is now 5:35. So I went just a few minutes over. Today's also time to vote, and voting is very important. I don't care how you vote or who you vote for. I may have my favorites, you got your favorites, but you got to let your voices be heard and vote. You still got an hour and a half to go vote when you leave here, close to an hour and a half. If you haven't voted, shame on you, but get out and vote. We're all in this together, whether or not you like it. I often re-quote this saying, but you know, I'm not going to get too into it today, so we'll may forget about that. But anyway, I always say I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And I do. I love each and every one of these commissioners that I work with today. We have our challenges sometimes. I appreciate the opportunity to work with each and every one of you every month. We're always going to have our differences. If we agree on everything, one of us is lying, right? My wife will tell you that as well. So it's I never agree with everything she says. She don't agree with everything I say, and that's why we've been married for 37 years. This is a process that we have to go through. This is a balanced budget. I am welcome you the next couple of weeks before we have our hearing. We've got a hearing come up on June the 2nd. That's for a chance for the public to come here we can hear from them on June the 2nd. We have a regular scheduled commission meeting that day, and then we'll have another hearing either a week or 2 weeks after that for our final vote, depending on how many changes that we have that we got to do to this budget. Keep in mind, this is a balanced budget. If you try to add something to this budget, you must subtract something from this budget. It's that simple. I'm happy to meet with you anytime, anybody about anything on this process. These books have been made for you. They're going to be passed out to you shortly. Got them? Okay. Thank you again, Sarita, for all the hard work that you do. Commissioners, thank you for all that you do, that you continue to do for our community. Everyone get out to vote tonight. Whoever wins tonight, we're going to support whoever wins tonight. And that concludes this budget presentation. Thank you very much.